All right, we are live. Simon Sollberger and Rich Bailey, welcome to the future of fitness. Simon, welcome back. Richard, welcome for the first time. It's really good to see you guys. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Simon, I'm excited. You and I did an interview. I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, and I actually still quote a lot of things that you said during
Great.
that interview in very good ways. Like I remember you had a really good analogy about the was it the red box? How I think it was your kid or whatever client's kids try to swipe one of those DVD rental things, and that was to set the table for like consumer technology expectations of the
Expectations.
youth as it increases. So anyway, if people here have heard me use that before, it's Simon. I got to credit him.
Use it freely.
You guys been doing okay. So you guys been doing an awful lot. There's a lot of, as you guys self-describe, a lot of tentacles to PEAR Health and everything you're doing. The acquiring of Aptive and the AI solutions that you guys providing, but also you guys have a really nice intersection of deep coaching and practitioner knowledge and technology, which I think is very interesting for leading this industry into the future. So, Simon, you've already been on the show. I'm going to start with Rich. If you don't mind, Rich, give us a quick introduction who you are, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, and great to be here. Look, my name is Rich Bailey. My role at PEAR is to deliver on our product strategy. And so my focus area is our deep tech. So that's our AI and foundational IP. And we want to use that to deliver on our core belief that exercise is medicine. And so when we think about our technology and AI and our IP, we want to see that as an amplifier that helps that medicine reach more people more effectively. And so in my role and working with Simon, it's about how do we translate that complex technology into simple, hyper-personalized experiences that allow us to deliver on our mission to empower people to move smarter, live healthier and happier lives.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, Rich. And I think as we get into this, your background will start to come to the front because you've been coaching and being involved in sports and athletics and performance for a very long time. And I think, what we're probably going to talk about, I would imagine, I never really know until we get done with the conversation, but like hyper personalization. Out of all the events I went to this year, as far as industry events, there was a couple of things that took front and center, right? Hyper personalization, AI was right alongside, or maybe I should say hyper personalization is right alongside artificial intelligence. And so people are keen on doing that. They want to get out in front of it, start adopting it into their practices and going from there. So Simon, I'm going to go back to you, man. It's been 5 years, roughly, give or take, since you came on this show and you joined me for your prolific quotes. But what's been going on, man? Like what's new? What's changed?
Yeah, it's been frothy, right? Like it's so much happened since. The one thing that's it's good and also frustrating, right? Like our vision still holds very much true, right? We really want to kind of shift from kind of what we call dumb fitness to smart fitness, right? So to really have a coaching partner that knows who you are and what's right for you and what to do, when to do it. So we obviously been working this for a long time, as you know, and we've been kind of, making small, progress. And obviously one big one was acquiring Performance Labs, which Rich is obviously part of the New Zealand team, which is kind of our science/AI arm, right? Our science team, AI team is in New Zealand. And so that really obviously gave a huge intelligence boost to our platform, right? Where we can truly interpret it, who somebody is, what they are doing, what they should be doing. And so we can really curate dynamically the content that's right for the person. So again, I think the vision is still the same, right? Making smart, interactive coaching, but that's just getting better and better. And so that was obviously one acquisition, bringing Performance Labs in to add intelligence, make the system smarter, more adaptive. So we're way on our way to that. And as you know, the latest acquisition we did was Aptive, right? And that was kind of in the light of, we really saw the shift, right, from kind of just in the health industry, we saw this shift from care and treatment to prevention and lifestyle, right? And so in the past, you would have somebody like some health insurance company build their own apps, and they were always very drab and clinical and boring. And so what we saw was really the shift to consumer grade experiences. So Aptive is one of the most beloved and downloaded, fitness apps. And so we really wanted to accelerate that process to a consumer grade experience. And hence we teamed up with, brought Aptive on board and, kind of accelerated that shift to a higher grade consumer experience.
Awesome. And when was that? When did you guys do the partnership or acquisition with Aptiv?
So Active is about two years ago.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah, it reminds me, I'm here, I guess as I'm talking to you guys, I'm realizing how much I just regurgitate other people's quotes and words. But Stephen Webster, I was in a conversation with him from a sensei, and he was talking about like how there's some critical points in technology. And one of them, which if people are old enough to remember, what was the thing before the iPhone? It was mostly used for work.
BlackBerry.
Like the BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeez. The BlackBerry, right? And how like everyone had a BlackBerry for work, and all of a sudden the iPhone came out, and everyone was like going to their IT department and saying like, "Hey, can you just crack open this so I can use my iPhone just solely?" Or they had two things walking around, and then the business world started to come in and be like, "Yeah, well, we need these consumer level experiences for the workplace, right?" So it's like that was like when I think of what you're talking about, that's an example that really comes to mind.
That's a great example. And also that the consumer pull, right? The consumer pulls in what they want. And so, I think that's a great example, right? Yeah, like people, even for corporate wellness, you don't want an experience that's branded by your health insurance. You want a consumer grade experience, right? So, totally.
Consumer grade experience. I like that. Well, maybe if you guys want to do this, I always find the easiest way to explain what something is maybe going through the consumer experience. So, with Aptiv, there's a lot of words in there that people, the corporate wellness or consumer wellness and applications and a healthy lifestyle, things like that. But describe Aptiv from the point of the consumer? Like, what is the experience and what's some of the technology that you guys have layered in there? Whoever wants to take it. How about you, Rich?
Happy to take that. For us, Aptiv is an intelligent wellness platform. So that allows users to come in, they can build their own program based on their preferences, based on their experience level, based on the workouts and timing that they want to do. They can build that program. They can execute that on a daily basis. They can come in and find additional supplementary content that supports them on their activity journey, whether that's around nutrition, breath work, meditation. And so that we're able to provide a myriad of options for the users to be able to perform as they go through their own personal activity journey. And so, that's important to them. We've also got access to a gym network of over 30,000 gyms.
Oh, wow.
So this allows us to be able to provide a holistic wellness experience for our users that takes into account both the digital experience, whether that's at home or the gym, and then also a physical experience across a broad gym network that operates coast to coast.
Yeah, really think of us as kind of the evolution of the fitness app, right? Like, so the old school fitness app would just be like, you have to go and find something for you, find a run or whatever, strength exercise, and you just kind of get a video or audio and you do it. And so the evolution, so Aptiv is really the evolution of that into something much more holistic. Like Rich has said, it's just not just like workouts, but it's like breath work, it's mobility health. And now we're layering in smart tools, right? So we have a mobility assessment tool that actually can assess, how well you move and then identifies deficiencies and then programs towards that, right? So this could be, to prevent injury or just to keep you healthy, moving, right? And so, so think of it as a smart population wellness platform. And when we say population, that could be corporate wellness, could be first responders, could be the DoD, right? So we have several contracts with the Air Force. But smart population wellness as a platform is a good way to kind of characterize that.
So, I think we all know in the industry, there's a ton of value to providing like the guidance and the knowledge and kind of the steps to get people to where they are, especially if it's personalized. If you do some sort of assessment, if I do an assessment on, Aptiv and it, I haven't used it, so I'm just kind of winging it here, but, it tells me like, okay, I have left ankle, poor mobility in my left ankle, which affects my right hip. Maybe there's some other assessments that go in, like, realize like I just need to meditate more. My blood pressure is high, kind of stuff that's fairly normal for a guy my age, I guess. Knowing it is one thing, but like getting me to engage in it is a completely different thing, right? Like you could have every answer you possibly need to be a healthier, more viable human being, right? But you got to do it. And that's like, I think even with people even for me, it's hard for me to get up and do my mobility every morning. I know I'm supposed to be doing it, but I don't want to do it. So like, how do you get people more engaged? Like, are we showing progress through technology and actual the engagement levels with these types of programs?
Yeah, so one of the things we're looking at is, and really understanding, is the intersection between, or interplay between, physical activity and behavior change. And I guess the paradox there is to be able to create behavior change from a physical activity point of view. Don't focus on the physical activity, focus on the mental side and the behavior change side. And so this is about meeting the user where they are on their journey, understanding that each user has a different starting point and a different goal. And so what works for one group of users is not going to work for another group of users. So how do we use some of our technology to be able to understand, hey, where a user is at and what is the nudge that we want to provide them to move them to do the next best thing for them? So if that's, hey, you're not doing anything, how can we give them a small nudge to start doing something? Is that, hey, we start with just doing this breath work or this meditation, starting easy and allowing them to feel the power of small wins, of winning the day. And so if we can focus on that and get them feeling like they're winning, that is what we believe is going to help create that behavior change and that habit over time.
Yeah, no, the New Zealand team did a lot of legwork on this, right? Like, how do you move somebody into a habit and into the action phase, right? So before, and that's, again, I'm referencing a lot kind of old school fitness app, which just be like, hey, you have a rigid training plan and Thursday you do this workout, right? And that's just not quite how humans operate, right? It's because things always change, or you might not feel like it. So we really want to shift kind of away from hard, rigid prescription to more what we call a guided discovery. And also, how do you get somebody into a habit, right? Before you actually get to the action phase, you need to kind of plant the seed, right? Like, so it gives, and this could be what we call soft content. This could be a podcast or an article or just a little prompt, right? But so the user kind of gets to start thinking about what they could be doing, right? I've never done mobility work in my life. So first I need to kind of know what this is about and why and what the benefits are. So yeah, again, planting seeds to then get people into the action phase.
So so podcasts are soft content. Is that what you're telling me?
It's amazing reading, right?
I don't know why that's alarming.
Time people spend on podcasts, right? Like it's
Right,
crazy.
right.
So we want to leverage that.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just I've never thought about it that way.
But also linking it to action, right? Like, so I'm in my car, I commute, I listen to one of your podcasts, and after that podcast, my motivation is probably at peak, right? Because I just listened to why mobility is so amazing, right? And so how can we link that motivation and information to then action, right? So there's definitely kind of a missing link from what you do to then the actual action phase. So I think there's a big opportunity.
That's the $1 billion, maybe $1 trillion question, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Rich. Sorry.
I was going to say, in our context, we can see that as a form of coaching. And coaching is not just, hey, you need to have a tighter core or drop deeper in a squat. That is one form of coaching. I think the other coaching is, how do we help provide the user the right information at the right time for them to be able to make a subtle shift in their behavior. And so, as Simon's referencing on the soft content, how are we using that to make subtle suggestions in order to be able to, as Simon says, plant a seed to be able to go, hey, I'm going to shift how I might interact with my next decision and actually have a positive outcome in terms of my behavior change.
I like it. Let's take it one layer deeper as far as context and maybe get into the what you guys do with the Air Force, because I think that'll provide kind of, because you guys have so many applications across numerous populations and groups. But tell us about that one, like how, because I know it's more of a specific case. So maybe walk us through how that worked and how you guys work with the DoD in that case.
Yeah, sure. So we've embarked on a number of projects with the US Air Force, understanding how we can use our technology and our knowledge to be able to help their female service members be able to prepare for childbirth through their pregnancy, and then also come out the other side in the postpartum phase and be able to repair and recover, and so that they can get ready to be able to pass their 12-month PFT. So when we think about that, that really aligns with our goals and our mission allowing people to move smarter, live happier, healthier lives. If we can apply that in that context, then we can see that we can have a really positive outcome on not only individual people's lives, but on an institution at a larger scale. And so when we think about AI in this context, it's not necessarily about artificial intelligence. For us, it's about how do we amplify impact? So the other AI, amplifying impact. And so it's not about the technology for its own sake, but it's how do we use that as a tool to deliver on our mission that movement is medicine. So we've been able to work with subject matter experts to be able to develop human curated training programs that allow a user to interact with Aptiv, go through a series of questions and assessments to be able to build them a program that guides them through each phase of their journey, whether it's prenatal, postpartum. And then in the moment, in the day, be able to check in using what we call natural language, using Aptiv to be able to interact with the coach and then be able to adapt their program. So if they're not feeling great, why is that? How do we help them still do something, win the day and keep moving and be able to almost provide that coaching in the moment? So it's not a binary outcome of, hey, I trained or I didn't. That's actually, I have done something today and I've won the day and I've moved on and I'm moving closer towards my goal. So really harnessing those power of small wins there.
I like it. So maybe like if I'm private penny, right? I'm pregnant, about to have my first kid. How does it all start? Is it like they get sent access to an app and then you do an onboarding, you talk to a coach, or is it automated? Like, what does that actually feel and look like in that initial processes?
Yeah. So if you were private penny, for example, we want to be able to, you would be given access to the Fit Warrior Mum tenant on Aptiv, and you would go through the process of setting up an account and onboarding. We would then allow you to be able to interact with our AI coach to be able to answer some questions that are pertinent to your particular situation. So in this case, on prenatal, we would ask some questions, and based on those answers, we've developed a series of programs that are, as I say, human curated. So it's not giving all the power and the decision over to the technology. It's actually understanding how do we use the human to be able to make the decision and develop a programming schedule to be able to deliver the user and guide them on their journey. And then in the moment, in the day-to-day, as they're going through life, they're able to check in with this coach and be able to get an adaptation on their plan based on how they're feeling. Are they feeling strong and we're ready to go? Are they feeling a little bit mere today? Not quite ready to hit it, but I still want to move? Or is it just a day where life's getting the better of me, and I just need to calm my central nervous system? I just do some breath work. But hey, I'm still doing an activity and feeling like I'm making progress by acting. And so we want to be able to provide the opportunity for users to be able to have that autonomy, but also be guided with the discovery of the activity that they're doing in the moment.
And I think the notion of a holistic programming, right? We see this just, obviously seen it very much in the military, but also with firefighters. And we saw it very clearly when we worked with the German Soccer Federation, right? Actually, the word that I heard the most was player welfare, right? Like, and what this is about is like, up till recently, it was just all about performance, right? Just strengths and conditioning. But now what's really starting to happen is player welfare, meaning mobility health, nutrition, sleep, lifestyle, mental health. And what's interesting enough, that exactly applies to athletes, that applies to firefighters, it applies to police, it applies to military, right? And so that's really what we're working on to bring this holistic programming to the table.
And I presume you guys, as far as data, well, is it subjective? Do you have objective? Like you're connecting with wearables or any other kind of data flowing in that's personalized to each particular individual? Or what kind of data are you guys getting on these people?
Yeah, so we're using a combination of both sensor data and also subjective feedback from the user. So being able to take those two elements and being able to use that to create a decision point to be able to provide back to the user to say, hey, based on X, Y, and Z, we think that this is the next best thing that you could be doing. And so we go through that process. We also realize that humans are not robots. We want to be able to provide the user still with the ability to have the autonomy to make a choice. And so whilst we can make recommendations, I think it's important that the user still has the autonomy to be able to say, hey, that may be what we've done or what is recommended, but I still want to be able to choose to do something else. So again, guidance, some coaching, but not really restrictive in terms of this is what you have to do. And then in terms of the tools that we're using, the data that we're pulling in, we're increasing the number of platforms that we're able to pull that from as well. So what that means for us and for the end users is that more data points means more personalization. And so for us, it's an evolution. We can continue to provide that hyper-personalized recommendation of what should I do next. But it's based on not only what are they doing in the 1x7, the 1 hour of training, 30 minutes of training they may be doing a day. It's the 23x7. What happens outside the gym? What happens outside the workout that is impacting your ability to recover, to be able to absorb what you've done, your life load? Are you sleeping well? What's happening to your HRV? All of those things that will have an impact on that recommendation to be able to guide that user.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
It's really a
Go ahead,
range,
Seth.
right? Like obviously the most obvious is biometric data from a wearable. Yes, we ingest all that. Connected scales. Yes, we ingest that. A glucose meter, that's going to be next, right? But also there's, for example, for mobility, it's pretty simple, right? Like we played around with some computer vision stuff, but more often than not, it's confusing to a user and to have to set up, if you prop up your phone and things like that. What we do, and we're partnering with obviously some experts in this field like Mover, but it gives you just a handful of things like how deep can you go in your squat and how high can you raise your hands above your head during a squat, or how far down can you touch your toes, or is it just to your chin? So that then informs the system on key markers for mobility and informs the programming. So yeah, it's a range. It's biometric wearables. It's simple, self-reported, and even just like what piques your interest, right? It's almost like an Instagram, right? What do you like, or what do you hover on that tells the system what your preferences are or what you're interested in. So it's really a range of data in that regard.
I want to kind of focus on the AI component of it. I mean, I think I'm starting to get a little AI fatigue of talking about it, but it's what you got to do, right? It's everywhere. And you guys have some really nice terms that you use and tools that in a way you're applying it, which I think provide more clarity. Like you described AI as connective tissue for the application, technology, and the service that you guys provide. Also, you had a really interesting feature, I guess would be this term of like the future self. So visualization as a motivation tool. So maybe give us some idea, like through how do you look at AI? I mean, obviously AI is not a standalone technology anymore, right? It's just everything has AI, right? So it's just this universal catch-all tool of phrase. So yeah, and maybe give us some clarity on like how you guys are specifically using artificial intelligence in the app.
Yeah, Simon, I'll go with this and feel free to
Go for it.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, as you've mentioned, sorry, that there's a lot of hype around AI, and I think it's easy to get caught up in that whirlwind of everything has to be AI, and we're going to AI this, AI that, and it's a very, very exciting time. And what that means with this new technology is that you can provide a solution and experience for everything. What we're finding is that taking a step back and just, as I said earlier, understanding what is our purpose and mission, and then how do we use that tool to amplify that impact. So not using the technology for the technology's sake, but using the technology to make a difference to the user's life and actually deliver on our belief that movement is medicine. So I think it's been very selective around how you use the tool and using it to be able to guide the user, as Simon's used the term, as using it as the connective tissue between each interaction, providing the coaching, providing the feedback for the user to guide them. You touched on this future self idea with the ability to be able to understand now what are a user's goals, where are they at currently, and then what is their what does their future state look like? How do we use technology to be able to present that future state back to them today? And so using tools like Google's Imagine, being able to generate a photo of them and go, hey, if you did this, this is what you're going to look like today. This is what you're going to look like in the future today. And so it brings that future state immediately to them and provides a lot more motivation and makes that more real. And I think if you've got a vision and you can clearly see that, that is empowering for your motivation and for your action. And so being able to use some of these tools to be able to really supercharge the motivation and feedback that we're providing users as they go on their journey.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, there's AI fatigue, as you said. It's just very frothy, right? There's so much hype. And so we want to be very thoughtful and not just do something because we can, but truly look through the lens of the user experience and make it meaningful. And so actually one of the things we joke internally is like, AI can't just be a text entry box with a blinking cursor, right? Because that's how all these models currently work. And that's obviously not very compelling. So what kind of product layer can we put on top of AI? And the most compelling is obviously the natural language interface, right? For the first time ever, you can actually have a dialogue or have a dialogue, so it's back and forth, right? So that's what we want to lean into, right? So you can actually tell our system how you feel or what gear you just bought, or, hey, I'm traveling, I'm on a business trip. And so that obviously then shifts what kind of content you get. So that's definitely where the opportunities are. The other thing is we just played around is we can now create content that's very responsive to the user, right? So traditionally fitness content is pretty bland, right? It's like a white seamless and a black mat and some dude in shorts. But let's say we create content now for a fire department. So now we can create content very quickly that's generative AI in front of a fire station, and the age and the demographic and is appropriate, and the tone of the coaching is appropriate. Or same if you do content for a youth soccer team in Singapore, it's the age, it's the gender, it's the environment. So we can actually create that very quickly. And that's exciting, right? So we can refresh content very quickly. We can make it, in context of who it is for. Yeah. So to us, that's the kind of the compelling area of AI. The other thing is trust, right? We don't just want to give an AI model, but we combine it with, as you recall, kind of at the core of PEAR was what we call training intelligence, which is basically an evidence-based system that ensures, you get the right content for you. So we obviously combine AI with that kind of science layer of training intelligence to make sure this is trusted. What you get is, not just some hallucination of an AI, but there's some scientific rigor behind it.
Out of curiosity, are you guys looking at augmented reality? I mean, do you think that's going to be a real thing in the near future, or is that kind of still a little fringy?
Depends for what. I mean,
okay.
Sure. I mean,
for health, for fitness and wellness, I guess. Yeah.
And there's some really, and that's probably not quite our turf, but we've seen some very compelling use cases for PTSD, or like some VR and augmented reality can be really compelling for some certain therapeutic applications. I think the complete VR is obviously challenging because you don't have the context of what's around you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, is it easy and does it fit easy into your lifestyle? Maybe not, but I'm sure there's definitely compelling specific application cases, but yeah, not quite our turf or focus at this point.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting technology, and it has lots of use cases. From my perspective, I sort of look at it as, if we're trying to have a big impact on users and ultimately make people healthier, we should allow users to have the minimal amount of equipment to be able to utilize our product as possible, and by having to get a VR headset and other technology, that's sort of going against the grain there. So I think we can have a bigger impact by simplifying our experience and making it more compelling to users than having to raise the barrier for them to have to be able to use the platform.
Yeah, and that's actually probably a good segue. One thing we talk a lot about is behavior as currency, and actually the New Zealand team was, I think, we believe, was the first that actually created IP around that your activity creates a token, like a blockchain token, right? So linking activity to a currency. And so the New Zealand did that way back. And Rich, you probably know exactly when, but like, probably 7, 8 years ago. But so when we think of VR or AR, like we think big headsets, but now you look at what Meta does with the Ray-Bans, right? They're obviously very, very lightweight and not that expensive. And so we could start, gamify certain things, right? Like as you walk around and you build up a currency, and then, there could be some easy prompts and nudges that just, so without overwhelming you with a lot of digital content, but there could be, little nudges and prompts popping up in your Ray-Bans and then that could lead some kind of brand partnerships where you earn some sort of an earn out, right? Like we mentioned here, we're partnering with Mavi, where exactly that concept, right? Behavior as currency. So you do what's right for you and your health and for your community, and you build up a currency then you can redeem with brand partners. And so something as light as a footprint or a wearable like a Ray-Ban Meta could play into that.
Yeah. And so when you get that currency, like essentially you mentioned brand partnerships, but like specifically, would that be like, I could go buy Element, right? LMNT, because I like it as a, electrolyte mix, or I could go, I don't know, name another consumer product, right? That you could go that's within the wellness space, or experiences maybe, or like trial, like what kind of rewards are you thinking?
To give you an example, right? Like, so we're doing some pilots now with fire departments, and there could be a mobility challenge, 2-week mobility challenge with mover content and sponsored by Therabody, right? And so for all the service members that participate in this 2-week challenge, they would earn either product or with Therabody, right? Either discounted or free product, or obviously however we structure that. So I think that's a good example to illustrate that.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, ultimately, guys, like we live in a capitalist culture, so all this is amazing, right? That we can do now with technology and personalizing it through the phone, and specific subsets of our population can get very specific, plans for what they need. So it's getting amazing, but people need to show ROI, right? So it's getting people on a path to better health within like a corporate, or, we talk about DoD or fire departments, first responders, things like that. What have you guys seen? Is it actually saving money for the organizations and also help making people healthier? Like what's the bottom line dollar change? Did I say that right? I think I butchered that. Anyway, you get the point.
I think getting people moving is there's a huge benefit, not only to society as a whole, but also from a healthcare cost point of view. Our research shows that if you move someone from being sedentary to moderately active, so that's meeting Centre for Disease Control or World Health Organization recommendations of 150 minutes of moderate activity a week, that's going to save around $1,300 per year in healthcare costs. If you think that 25% of the adult population is not active, not meeting those guidelines, that extrapolates out to 65 million adults. That's $85 billion a year in healthcare savings. That's a big number.
That's a big number.
Yeah, right. And I think you could argue that there's a big return on investment there, not only from a dollar point of view, but also just, hey, what does that mean for society and productivity as a whole? I think where we can play a big part as well is that moving people from sedentary to moderately active is great, but it's binary, right? So you're either doing 150 minutes or you're not. How do we engage users so that they could do 75 minutes, and how do we actually get them moving so that it's not just a win or lose? It's actually, hey, they're doing what is healthy and good for them, and over time we can shift their behaviors to do more activity. So removing that win or lose mentality at the front, to be able to, hey, we're still going to reward you if you're doing 3,000 steps, because that's good if you're only doing 1,000 previously. And so, really being able to help guide users and make them move smarter and win.
Yeah, and also circling back a little bit to what we talked about in the beginning, right? The consumer grade, but also that there's pull from the consumer, right? So it's not so much like you have to convince people to get active, but like, and I keep going back to the example as the firefighters, like when we talked to some of the fire chiefs, they said like, if you talk to firemen about 2 years ago about Pilates or breathwork, they would have laughed at you. And he said that completely changed, that wellness really skyrocketed to the top. Whereas like they understand health span and they understand mobility health, they understand mental health and why breath work is into. So it's fascinating to see how the demand is now coming from the user more and more, and they understand the why, right? And I think that's a massive shift, and that's obviously going to show in absenteeism, that's going to show in premiums, right? And so back to your question about the hard dollar impact. So, but yeah, we're very encouraged to see how the consumer really understands this now.
And the same is true for the Air Force as well, right? So if they've spent all this money recruiting and training people, and then as part of life, people the service members are having families, having children, etc. How do we help guide their users back to force readiness? Because that's going to help with attrition and turnover. That has a huge benefit to the Air Force and other military branches, as well as law enforcement, first responders. It's keeping people engaged, healthy, and ready to be productive in whatever line they're in.
And I think that's just across the board, right? When you look at the level of education of the normal consumer when it comes to health and wellness is increasing at a pretty fast rate. Like I maybe it's just who I hang out with, or because I run a podcast like this. But if I'm hanging out with friends, or I was watching a baseball game with a friend of mine the other day, and you start really making questions about like specific supplements, he was asking me about that, or parametric chambers, like things like that. And I'm like, wow, like this is a much different conversation than I would have been having 5 years ago, for sure, right? And I think that's starting to trickle up. And to your point, Simon, is like the demand is starting from the ground up, which is very different than trying to push it from the top down. And that's, eventually kind of meets somewhere in the middle where those two things are jiving, right? But, capital incentives from the top, and then, overall feeling good and looking good, and, living a fuller life from the consumer standpoint, those are going to meet. And it's a really cool time. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm sure it's going to be messy for a while until we kind of figure it out. Frothy, as you may say, Simon, but it's it's a really interesting time. I don't think it's just those populations you guys talked about with fire and DoD, but I think it's just the general consumer.
Yeah, very much so. No, you're right.
It's spot on.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you guys need right now. So, as people are tuning in, and I know you guys are specifically looking maybe for some partnerships and things like that, but if people are going to reach out to you guys, like what's the most critical thing you guys are looking for right now? How can the industry help you guys with your mission?
Yeah, partnerships are definitely very much at the core, right? Like we want to assemble kind of a best of breed offering, right? Like, because, and I think that's what we talked, actually last time I talked to you on the podcast, one was, is this notion of interoperability, right? Like it used to be that fitness apps or whatever were very siloed and kind of walled off gardens. And we, just a couple of years ago when we talked last, that was one of the predictions, is like, hey, these walls are going to come down and these systems start talking to each other. And so that's definitely, we want to assemble a best of breed kind of matrix, right? Like I said, we bring in Mover for mobility health. We bring in Mavi for these kind of marketplace, brand partnerships, currency as behavior. We bring in a company called NeuroPeak for breath work, right? For mental health and de-stressing. So we're looking for partners, especially kind of in the nutrition space. So yeah, we want to work with the best in the field, right? And then PEAR and Aptiv is more kind of the OS that kind of curates these different components and content that can be orchestrated and bring it together. So that definitely would be a big thing we're looking for, is to like, hey, who else can we work with to address certain audiences or demographics or certain issues?
Yeah. I can think of like 10 off the top of my head that you guys should probably talk to, because that, if you try to create like the super offering and list of things, and there's so many cool things. There's like new sleep technologies coming out, of course, biomarker testing, and it's all democratizing fairly quickly. Like it's becoming more and more accessible. So man, a lot of cool technology coming out. I mean, when you look at all these wellness technologies, it's kind of a fun question, but what over the next 5 years gets you guys the most excited, right? Is it like, I don't know, advancements in sleep technology? Is it advancements in, peptides? Like what do you guys get most excited about when it comes to technology?
You first.
Yeah, I think what Simon's touching on is this ecosystem. I think the ability for multiple sources of data to be able to be made sense of, I think that is very exciting, understanding the interaction between all these elements, whether it's sleep, whether it's your nutrition, whether it's your hydration. Previously, we've had some really solid products that have been able to do things in isolation or siloed, but being able to bring them together to be able to give meaningful insights on how a user at a personal level can take those insights and change their behavior. I'd like to think that is one of the things that we're going to be able to see, is that really high level of personalized well-being that will exist in the market. Yeah, I think that's going to have an explosive opportunity.
Yeah. Simon, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of, repeat myself a little bit from the previous part, but I think that the portability and interoperability is important, right? So let's say I do all my exercise and workouts and things in Aptiv, right? But on the other side, I signed up with Functional Health and I did all my labs, but they don't talk to each other. So I think these systems need, and it's going to be really interesting with all these AI agents. We can just have the Aptiv agent talk to the Functional Health agent, right? And so now these things start fusing. And then same thing with Mavi, right? So now I exercise and I eat well, and that I get rewarded on the Mavi side, right? So I get a discount, or sweet, maybe I earn a sweet green meal, or I get discounts on something I want to buy, right? And it's kind of, and that's what I love. The New Zealand team talks a lot about gaming theory, right? Oftentimes when you are in a game, you earn things that make you better at the game, right? And so that's kind of the same thing. I exercise and I get half off of a Theragun, right? And so that makes me better at my wellness routine, or I earn some sort of a discount with Thorne supplements, and that makes me better again in the game, right? So I think that's exciting, right? To kind of have these systems come together, and the experience is portable, right? No matter if I'm at home or at the gym or wherever life takes me. So that's really what we're excited about.
Yeah, it's so funny, like you say, AI is talking to each other, and I just caught myself in a meeting last week where it's like, a gentleman was like, "Hey, I do you guys mind signing an NDA?" And I just joked. I'm like, well, yeah, just have your GPT send the NDA over to my GPT. And then, because what's going to happen, right? He's just probably going to pull one, right, from there. And then I'm going to throw it through mine. And then pretty soon it's like, well, what are we even talking? Let's just have things connect. It's getting weird, is all I'm trying to say. I didn't think I would be saying that 3 years ago, that this is actually happening.
Have your AI talk to my AI.
Yeah. Right? I don't know. Well, anyway, guys, it's super interesting stuff. And thank you for coming back and, updating us on everything that you're working on. And this is the future, right? It's pulling in all these. I've been talking about for many years, wearable data started coming out about like, okay, well, it's the what now problem. It's like, okay, people are getting fed data, but what now? Like, what do they do with it? But to have the structure around it and being able to pull in multiple things and have, pull from the right sources and make it seem seamless to the user and easy, that's not an easy lift. So keep up the great work. If people want to get a hold of you guys, or if they want them to go somewhere, where would you like them to go?
Yeah, Aptiv.com. Aptiv as in AAPTIV. Yeah, Aptiv.com.
Cool. Right on. Well, you guys, thank you so much. Simon, it's always a pleasure seeing you again. Rich, thanks for joining me.
Good to be here, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Simon Rich.
Yeah, cheers.